Am I the only one that thinks Smaug in this movie actually looks like he descended from a thing of cats? No, just me. Guess so. Hi, my name is Victorious Nightshade. I am a vlogger and a gothic enthusiast. Right now, I'm actually kind of homesick right now, just because my sinuses are killing me, and also the ibuprofen finally kicked in, so maybe my headache will go away. Today's not a typical video. I want to do a review, if you will, of Lord of the Rings, just because we're getting into the mood of recording our first session with Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm all sorts of excited about that because nerd. That's why. For this type of video, I don't know what I want to say, but this is the first out of three that I want to do. This one, of course, being from the 1977 version of The Hobbit, which, of course, was a cartoon by Rankin and Bass, and it is the staple of my childhood, and was actually touched in the last video that I made for y'all. So, be excited for that. What that is Rankin and Bass was a cartoon company in the 1970s, and this movie is filled to the brink, and it just screams the 1970s, and it's absolutely beautiful. I mean, just for example, there's an actual song in the next movie that I want to talk about, which is The Return of the King. Well, it'll probably be the third video, but there's an actual song called Where There's a Whip, There's a Way, and here's a showing.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today. But the Lord of the Lashes says, nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a whip, there's a way. 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 Left, right, left, right, left. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Left, right. A crack on the back says we're gonna fight. We're gonna march all day and night and more. For we are the slaves of the dark horse. Left, right, left, right. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip, we don't want to go to war today. But the Lord of the Lashes says, nay, nay, nay. We're gonna march all day, all day, all day. Where there's a whip, there's a way. Left, right, left, right, left, right.
Okay, you good? But there's like multiple different songs in these series that are interesting, and The Hobbit unfortunately does have them as well. But most of them are more ballad-like, and they do feel very close to it. But you know what? Let's get started. First off, before I start this review, I wanted to apologize about the video quality that is coming up. One, my webcam sucks. Two, the only video I was actually able to get of this whole movie / TV special. It definitely came with Spanish subtitles, so I apologize if it's not the right subtitles or if it looks weird. I didn't do that. So, yeah, that's a thing. Also, please keep aware that I'm just trying to stay as neutral as possible. You can either love this movie or hate this movie. That's up to you. But for me, I absolutely adore this movie, and this is actually what got me in the Lord of the Rings. Thank you, Mr. Sobers and my father. Mind you that I might have personally a little bias, but I'm going to try to quell that. And of course, how do we start off any good movie that happens to be, sci-fi fantasy? All begins in a hole in the ground.
In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Many ages ago, when this ancient planet was not quite so ancient, long before man recorded his history.
And this is where I get my first point. I happen to like the narrator. This is before redundancy became redundant. You know, this is how Dungeons and Dragons should be made. Honestly, every time I watch this movie, I think of how this could be easily a Dungeons and Dragons scenario. You guys did very well on this. And I feel that honestly, this is a good way of actually introducing children into the whole idea of Tolkien's work, especially with the whole, oh, you know, let's use some of the literature, because if you actually read the book, that's literally the first few sentences that are in the book. In the hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole, but as dirty as that is, now, thank you, Tolkien, scarred for mind. Scarred for days. I think it's a great tool to utilize both the text and this. And honestly, I love that 1970s animation there. Let's skip ahead.
In an area known as the Shire, there was a village named Hobbiton. It was a hobbit.
So basically what this intro is that you're learning about this hobbit or this houseboy by the name of Bilbo. And yes, insert the name jokes here, such as dildo. Anyway, Bilbo Baggins is basically a man who, if these dwarves and this wizard didn't come by, he would be basically the adventures of the Middle Earth Full House edition, or, you know, Full House Middle Earth edition, you know, starring Bilbo Baggins as Danny from there. So that's a thing. But basically what happens is that you have these 13 dwarves that kind of impose themselves on Mr. Baggins and basically set him up for an adventure. And what happens is basically, you know, they're exploring the adventure. They start singing about how they're basically busting up and trashing Bilbo's house. And, you know, Gandalf is just sitting there watching. And, you know, skip ahead. You know, they basically employ Bilbo against his will, basically hookering him out. And they basically give him a map and let them know what actually happened. And Bilbo takes it like a man, just like this.
None other.
The only thing I really do have to say about these types of things is the fact that if you actually listen to the music has been taken from the book itself. So, you know, like the songs that the dwarves are singing, it's all about, you know, from the book. And it does set this dark, eerie tone to it, and it does make things a little bit easier to follow emotionally if you're not able to comprehend what's going on, that sort of thing. And if you listen to the lyrics again, if you go to the book, you'll find them in there, and I think it's beautifully done.
So basically what happens forward before we get to the intro is that, you know, he agrees to the whole burglar situation. They give him a contract. He reads it over, figures out that he might have funeral expenses, and then tries to back out. But Gandalf's like, no, bitch, you're going. So there's that. And then, of course, you have that long intro. And then, of course, you would start off with the first world problems of Bilbo Baggins with forgetting his beautiful pocket handkerchief, which is kind of funny because he could have brought that on his own. That's on his own damn self, because he could have at least stuffed it into his pocket. So that's on him.
Not even a pocket handkerchief. How can one survive?
Let's define Bilbo as first world problems.
How did Gandalf get ahead of us, Bungle?
He comes and goes at will. He is a wizard, you know.
You know, that is actually one of the most worst answers that I could ever hear of. I don't want to shit on this because I actually really like this movie. But to me, honestly, I think that is like the worst answer that you could ever give. Even like for me being a dungeon master or a veteran of Dungeons and Dragons, I know this is not Dungeons and Dragons, but even if I were to try to pull that, my party people would probably kick my ass for that. It's like, you know what? These are goblins. They come and go as they will. They eat and they don't eat as will. I don't have to roll. You know, you don't do that. And honestly, I think that's just one of the things that you kind of want to take a look up. But I kind of noticed that, you know, throughout this movie, Gandalf kind of appears, disappears, kind of comes and goes. And it just seems like he really doesn't give a care about them. I know that's kind of wrong compared to the books. And I did read the books cover to back all the time, especially when I was in middle school, high school. So that's one of those things that it does kind of irk me, because I know Gandalf does care about the party. He does care about everyone who does who is part of this whole adventure, if you will. And basically, it kind of escalates from there. Mind you, it starts storming in this movie, and then they kind of go into the whole trolls, which, of course, you know, it starts raining. They find the trolls. Bilbo ends up getting captured and outing the dwarves being there. So, you know, the trolls end up carrying them, being like, hey, we're gonna eat y'all. And so Gandalf, he kind of reappears again and ends up, you know, stealing the show by turning them into stone. And the rest is kind of history. They end up finding the treasure where the trolls are hiding. They find some gold. They find, you know, like Sting, which of course is in the next few books. That's actually the backstory for Sting, is that it was basically a short sword for a elf, if you will, but it's considered a long sword for a hobbit. Ha ha ha. It's considered elven made, and they make their way to Rivendell, where they meet their lovely overlord, Elrond, which of course they show him how to read moon runes, and that of course turns into a whole prophecy, which of course was explained in the beginning of the film through the dwarves singing, and of course that does bring on another whole topic of the next of their adventure. So that's basically the restart of their adventure. Cue the next intro. And lo and behold, it starts storming again. They're climbing up the mountains, and they happen to reach Goblin Town. Now, Goblin Town scared the crap out of me when I was a kid, and this was a lot to take in. I mean, I got really scared watching this, and, you know, I'm kind of a sensitive kid, or I was a sensitive kid, and honestly, this did kind of bug me a lot. Just because, you know, to me, all these goblins / orcs, they all look like creatures of some sort that I know. I mean, Smaug looks like a kitty. Gollum looks like a goddamn frog. Apparently all evil stems with animals somehow. I don't know. But with this, I kind of got freaked out. Just also, if you kind of look at the imagery is kind of strong as well. While they're kind of scary, they get outed as holding goblin cleavers, which is an elven sword, kind of like Sting. And the rest is kind of history there. Gandalf reappears, once again after disappearing again. God damn it, Gandalf, quit playing Houdini. And while they're running away from everything, Bilbo gets knocked out, and, you know, he should be dead by now. If you really think about it. I mean, unless hobbits have rubber necks and rubber skulls, that the way that they drew him falling, he would have cracked his skull and died. But then we end up with Gollum, which Gollum is a token of the LOTR universe and all that. So, you know, just for a warning, this guy says my precious a lot, and it kind of got on my nerves, so I'm going to go ahead and speed past most of this, but I'm also going to keep a count, because honestly, I want to keep a count after all these years of watching this movie. So, I'm going to go ahead and add a point every time he says precious.
My precious. It is my precious. Hello, my precious. Precious and precious. Food for my precious. What is that noise? My precious. My precious does not know.
Okay, so basically what happens is that Bilbo ends up going through these riddles with Gollum. He ends up beating Gollum at his game of riddles, and he ends up escaping, basically using Gollum as a ploy to escape somehow. And, you know, Gollum, he's all pissed off. Oh, well. Good job, kitty bear! Sorry, the cat had to talk to me about that. But basically Gollum's all mad, and he ends up leaving. You know, Thorin and company are getting, you know, yelled at by Gandalf, and that's basically how it comes, is that Bilbo ends up rejoining the party, and they end up getting chased back by wolves and wargs and so on and so forth, you know, like the bad guys of the whole story anyway. And they end up getting picked up by eagles and sent over to Mirkwood Forest. Now, Mirkwood Forest is the home of the Wood Elves. And, of course, before they are able to get to the Wood Elf area, they are basically picked on and almost eaten by spiders, which was something that definitely scared me when I was a kid. I hate spiders even to this day. Spiders need to die, and this is what I will do to them if I see a damn spider in my house after this goddamn video.
Retreat! We are no match for Sting!
Or blow up the house. Either way works. You know, kill with a sword, bash in the head, set on fire. Same death.
Found them.
As the story progresses, you can actually start seeing a little bit more of a darker tone in this story. Bilbo ends up defeating the spiders as is, and his party ends up getting captured by the Mirkwood Elves, or the Wood Elves, and they're instantly brought to their king, which I always thought was kind of an interesting take on the king, considering if you look at modern day depictions, such as this. What a handsome man you are, Thranduil. Anyway, you have that, and then you have this fey-looking guy who is very frail. I think he was voiced by the same man who voiced Scrooge McDuck in the original DuckTales. I could be very wrong. Correct me in the link down below. If anything, please let me know, because this voice actually bothers me the most, because I think I know where he's from, but I'm not sure all the way through. But they end up not really defeating the Wood Elves per se, because they don't really attack, but Bilbo, using the Ring of Power that he found in Gollum's lair, he ends up going to the Wood Elves and finding them drunk, just like in the book, and he ends up going and putting the dwarves in the barrels and sending them on their merry way down the river. I thought this was actually really cleverly animated, because this is actually a really hard scene to do, considering that all you have is a floating sword or a floating whatever. And, you know, I like the song here. I think it's actually a really decent song, and it's not out of place at all.
I am Thorin, grandson of King under the mountain. I have returned.
The stream shall run in gladness, the lake shall shine and burn. All sorrow, fail, and sadness at the mountain king's return.
Hail!
So our lovely party has arrived at Dale, which is a human city nestled on a lake under the Lonely Mountain, which of course the dwarves had their kingdom in, which is the premise of this whole story. Now, Smaug lives in that that mountain right now. So basically what they're doing is that they're just announcing themselves, hey, we are your savior. You don't have to live in fear any longer. And the humans are basically, we are in your debt. You are welcome here. You are welcome. Once again, king under the mountain, that sort of thing. But they go back up to the mountain once they're completely, everything has been put together. Their whole packs have been remade. Everything is peachy keen. Now, what's going to happen is that they're going to go ahead and get up to that mountain, and from what I understand and from what I've read in the books as well as seen in this movie, is that now the prophecy of when the thrush knocks, a keyhole will open the mountain once again. Now, with that, the prophecy happens. Bilbo is sent into the mountain, and he finds the ever-living Smaug, which is now sleeping on a gold... basically a mountain of gold that he stole from these dwarves. And it's a beautiful scene, but I can't help but laugh just because the damn dragon looks like a goddamn cat, and every time I look at my cat, I sit there and go, she's the desolation of Smaug. Hi, kitty bear. Are you Smaug? No comment? Okay then. Now, once Bilbo is in the mountain, Smaug awakens, and as you can see, and he starts talking to Bilbo, but the thing is that Bilbo's still in Riddle Land over here, where he's honestly still talking in riddles in order to save himself as well as save the dwarves, and that ends up backfiring on him, and he ends up basically sentencing all the humans to death. Now, with this prophecy, though, this is where the kicker comes in. The kicker comes in is that Smaug ends up leaving and goes to take it out on the humans down below, because he thinks that since Bilbo said, I am a barrel rider, I am human, and that happens to be a thing with this. So, yeah, Bilbo pretty much just sentenced half a Dale to death. You know, no big deal, thug life over here. But what that is that he is... This is where the guy who was speaking to them, he ends up taking a arrow and piercing, like I had said before, because the thrush talks to him, and they literally become free of Smaug. You know, victory.
Might be mine. What if Smaug returns?
Oh, he's been gone for a week now. Found greener pastures, no doubt.
Has this wealth made you mad?
But, you know, madness definitely works over sanity any day.
We must find our way out of this mountain and see for ourselves if he's gone, and quickly.
Giant fire.
Okay, so the desolation of Smaug has happened. Now all the dwarves are super happy. They happen to, you know, make their kingdom once again. You know, Thorin is now considered king under the mountain, and Bilbo is now known as queen under the mountain. Basically, just kidding. All you guys who know what I'm talking about, leave a like. But basically what happens now is that since the dwarves are now considered rich, they're considered decently back into their kingdom. They go to take a look and they see a whole bunch of encampments coming up, and you see the wood elves. The men of Dale are basically asking for money to rebuild their town. Elves are just being greedy as all fuck. They just want to be recognized and take half. So they end up bickering and they go off to war. Now Bilbo is fighting for the dwarves here, but the thing is that he's kind of not sure, and it's actually kind of funny because, like, towards the end, you'll see that he is actually waiting with the ring on his finger. Not a care in the world as someone dies right in front of him. Anyway, that's actually a thing in this stupid movie. I love this movie so much, but oh my god, there's sometimes where it's just brutal. But basically what happens is that they try to go to war with each other, and then out of nowhere a fourth army shows up, which is the goblins, orcs, wargs, that sort of thing. So all three armies that were supposed to be fighting against each other turn against them, and then another fifth army, which is an army of eagles for some reason, you know, dropping out of the sky like a bunch of bomber planes. They basically go in and save the day too, and basically what happens after that is that, you know, again, Bilbo's resting on a rock, and he ends up watching someone die right in front of him. And of course, that's supposed to be, oh, he got knocked in the head. No, I don't think he did. Honestly, I think he was just lazy because, you know, hobbits. But basically what happens is that he sits on the deathbed of Thorin and he finds out, oh, you know, this is really sad. I'm going to miss my friend, but I need to go home. So he basically treks his way back home with Gandalf, and, you know, he does his own hobbity thing. But just so you guys know, that ring that's now sitting on his mantle, that's the reason why the rest of the books exist. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this again. I definitely really enjoyed working with this, and, you know, this is actually one of my favorite movies. You can definitely enjoy it if you've read the books. If you want your kids to get into this, I suggest this movie before watching any of the live action ones, just because this has a little bit more context, more suitable for children, as where the live action ones with like Elijah Wood and Sam Ashton, or is it Sean Ashton? Sorry, I was thinking Samwise. Hello, but they're really not that kid friendly, and I really definitely suggest giving these a watch as well. I'll be going ahead and, you know, just saying here, the animation is absolutely dated, but you know what, it's absolutely beautiful. I really enjoy this as a piece that all of us can enjoy, and I hope you guys really enjoy, and I hope you guys take this as a venture. Again, thank you so much for watching. And of course, please subscribe if you liked it, and, you know, leave a big old like and leave me a comment for our next movie to review. But I'm gonna probably go to sleep, and I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys go. Have a safe night, my little nightlings. Pleasant dreams.
The greatest adventure is what lies ahead. Today and tomorrow are yet to be said. The chances the change.